Hello guitar enthusiasts, this is Drew Craig with GuitarPlayerUniversity.com. Now this is a common scenario I've seen among all my students and especially among you guys on the internet. You're searching around for free tabs on the internet, you find one, and usually, the tabs aren't that good. Usually they'll just have the lyrics and then little chord symbols above it, and for most of us that's enough because we've heard the song, we kind of know what it sounds like, we have a rough idea of the strumming rhythm, etc. But one problem that always occurs is there'll be a real wacky chord in there somewhere. Like, most of the chords are okay, like you got a C, you got a G, you got a D, then all of a sudden there's this weird like F sharp minor chord or B major or something that we don't really know. So what do? We pull up another tab on Firefox and we look for chord dictionaries so we can figure out this one chord. Well, by the end of this video, you'll be able to find these chords on your own, and you'll also be able to find multiple places to play them. This is a really great video. So what we're going to be talking about is bar chords. Bar chords are a lot harder to play. They require a lot of strength. So if you have trouble with this at first, it's totally normal. You just got to keep practicing these. So let's take a look at a few bar chords. So the first bar chord I want to look at is our major bar chord. And it's important that we know where the roots of the chords are. And the root is the note that gives the chord its name. In other words, A major, the root of A major is A. So an A major bar chord looks something like this. We're going to take our first finger, put it all the way across the 5th fret, and make sure your finger's right up on the fret. Now we're going to take our 3rd finger and put it on the 7th fret and on the A string, and our 4th finger also on the 7th fret of the D string. And then our 2nd finger is going to be on the 6th fret of the G. And this is going to make our A major bar chord, and chances are it doesn't quite sound that clean if this is the first time you've played a bar chord. But just keep being patient with yourself. Now where did this come from? This is actually just like an E major chord. Just scooting it up using our first finger as a bar. It's basically the same thing, the same form, but now it's an A major chord. So the cool thing is about this, like you just saw, I can move this anywhere. Depending on where the root is, which is the lowest note we're playing, that determines what chord it is. So this would be a G major chord. This would be A major, B flat major. You can move this anywhere you want and get the major quality, depending on where you put the root. Now to make it minor, this is a piece of cake. Just lift up your 2nd finger. And it goes minor. And the same thing is true. If you want a G minor, move it to the 3rd fret. If you want an F sharp minor, 2nd fret. And the only other form I want to show you is dominant 7th. And how to make a dominant 7th bar chord is simple. You start with your major bar chord. Lift up your pinky. There's your dominant 7th bar chord. You can move this anywhere as well. If you want an A flat bar chord, just move it down a half step. Now, how am I finding all these chords? Well, I've memorized the notes of the E string. If you can memorize the notes of the E string, you'll be able to find where all these chords are. And it's not too difficult. So I wrote them out in front of you so you have them for now, but start to memorize the notes and it'll make it easy for you to find these chords. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, what if the chord in the tab was like D flat major? I got to jump all the way up to D flat major just to grab that? No, I'm going to show you another technique. Check this out. If we were to change where the root is, in other words, if we wanted to move the root of these bar chords to the A string, we're going to have to learn new shapes for them. In other words, if we move the root to the A string, the major chord's not going to look like this anymore. It actually looks like this. And this is kind of a tricky fingering. Some people prefer to bar their 3rd finger. This takes a lot of strength to do. Now this is what a major form looks like. You can see it in front of you. So now the root is on the D string. So this would actually be a D major chord. If I wanted a C major chord, I'd move down to the 3rd fret, because that's where C is on the A string. Wherever the note is on the A string, that's where you move your root. You can get an E flat major, E major, whatever you want. Now let me show you a couple other forms. The minor form is actually very similar to the major form of the E string. It's just scooted down a string, like that. And you can see that in front of you. It's a very similar shape, so make sure not to mix this one up with the major form on the E string. This is the minor form on the A string. The only other one I want to show you is the dominant 7th form. Go back to your major form and lift up your 3rd finger. And sometimes it'll be easier to use your 3rd finger on the 7th fret for the dominant form. So now you have 6 different positions to use, and it's very important that you use different. It's very important that you can tell the difference between the ones that are based off the E string and the ones that are based off the A string, because that's how you can figure out what chord it is, by using those strings. So if you're figuring out what a C major chord is, on the A string your C is right here. If I wanted a major chord, I'd use the major shape. Now on the E string, C is all the way up here. So if I wanted a major chord on C on the E string, I'd use the major shape for the one on the E string. Now let's say I wanted a C minor. I just make that a minor shape. And same thing goes here. If I wanted a C minor, I'd use the minor form. But I'm using the form that has the root on the A string, and that's very important that we keep those consistent with the string. Otherwise, we're not going to be playing the right chords. But what this does is it shows you that there's a C minor here and a C minor up here. Also shows you that there's a B major here and a B major right here. So we have options all of a sudden. We have two places to play each one of these chords. So going back to the hypothetical example where we're on the internet looking for a tab, and it has some pretty easy chords, and then all of a sudden there's a really weird chord in there like F sharp minor. I can go through these forms and figure out, oh, there's an F sharp minor right here. There's also an F sharp minor based off the F sharp on the A string all the way up here. So obviously if we're playing in the open position, this F sharp would be the appropriate choice because we don't have to move very far. And that's how we can start to formulate these chords using our own vocabulary, and we're not dependent now on chord dictionaries. Now at this point we can find any major, minor, or dominant seventh chord in two different places on the neck. One place, the first place is based off the root notes of the E string, and the second place is based off the root notes of the A string. So this is a really interesting concept, and it helps you out. Once you memorize these 6 forms and memorize the notes of the E and the A string, you're pretty much set. So there you have it. You can now find any major, minor, or dominant seventh chord in two different places on the neck. The first place based off the E string, second place based off the A string. And the cool thing is you're going to find that if the E string form is up here on the neck, the A string form is going to be down here, and vice versa. If your A string form is up here, your E string form is going to be down here. So there's always one close to the position you're playing in. And always choose the chord that's closer because, we don't want to move around very much. We want to move as little as possible. But thanks for watching, and check out more videos at Guitar Player University.